Hello, I'm James Azimoha and you're watching A News. Let's see your headlines. Trump says U.S. will not leave Iran early as he wants to avoid problems reappearing in the future. U.S. to withdraw 5,000 troops from Germany, according to officials. And Ukraine warns of rising border tensions as regional security concerns grow. Now, Trump says the United States will not leave its confrontation with Iran early, warning that a premature withdrawal could allow the problem to return in the future. He also says he is not satisfied with Iran's latest proposal as negotiations continue but remain stalled.
And we're going to continue.
U.S. President Donald Trump said on Friday that U.S. hostilities with Iran have terminated, citing the ongoing ceasefire and arguing he does not need congressional authorization under the War Powers Resolution. In a letter to lawmakers, Trump said there has been no exchange of fire since early April, effectively pausing the 60-day deadline for military approval. That interpretation, however, has been challenged by members of Congress, who say the requirement still applies. Despite declaring hostilities over, Trump made clear the standoff is unresolved.
We're just winning. If it were a fight, they'd stop it. If this were a fight, they'd stop it. You know that expression, it's true. But they're not coming through with the kind of deal that we have to have, and we're going to get this thing done properly. We're not going to leave early and then have the problem arise in 3 more years.
Trump confirmed negotiations with Tehran are ongoing, but said he is dissatisfied with the latest proposal delivered through intermediaries. He continued to frame the situation as a strategic success, calling it a big victory, and saying the United States holds the upper hand both militarily and in negotiations.
But we just had a conversation with Iran. Let's see what happens. But I would say that I am not happy.
Trump also sought to reassure concerns about U.S. military readiness, saying weapons stockpiles are strong and even larger than before the conflict, with resources positioned globally. He dismissed concerns over the legal deadline, suggesting the requirement is widely viewed as unconstitutional and that the ceasefire provides additional time. Meanwhile, Reuters reports Trump is considering a long-term naval blockade of Iran to curb oil exports, though no final decision has been made. U.S. officials say United States Central Command is preparing options ranging from limited strikes to securing shipping routes in the Strait of Hormuz. Separately, the United States Department of the Treasury warned that any payments to Iran for passage through the strait could trigger sanctions, including those labelled as humanitarian. For now, the ceasefire remains in place, but with negotiations stalled and pressure tactics intensifying, the path toward a final agreement remains uncertain.
Now, tensions are rising once again between Washington and Berlin. The U.S. decision to reduce its military presence in Germany has brought Donald Trump's tough stance toward European allies back into focus. Meanwhile, disagreements over the Iran war are also exposing new divisions within NATO.
The United States is preparing to withdraw 5,000 troops from Germany. The decision comes amid rising tensions between Washington and Berlin over the war with Iran. Disagreements between U.S. President Donald Trump and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz have intensified in recent days. Merz said the United States had been humiliated in talks with Iran. Trump later strongly criticized him. Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said the decision was made on the orders of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The troop withdrawal is expected to be completed within 6 to 12 months. More than 36,000 U.S. troops are currently stationed in Germany. The country hosts America's largest military presence in Europe. Trump also criticized Italy and Spain, saying they had failed to support the United States during the Iran conflict. He suggested troops could also be withdrawn from those countries in the future. Merz, meanwhile, said the United States had no clear strategy on Iran. He argued that Tehran was dragging out negotiations while Washington failed to achieve results. In response, Trump wrote on social media that Merz doesn't know what he's talking about. Washington had previously considered reducing troop numbers in Germany, but earlier plans were later cancelled. Germany, however, has significantly increased defence spending in recent years. The country's defence budget is expected to exceed 105 billion euros by 2027.
Now, joining me now from Aarhus is Shakmi Niazi, journalist and political analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start with the obvious. Is this really about force posture, or is Trump using troop deployments as political leverage against allies who challenge him?
Well, the timing of it reveals that it's not just about force posture, because it came right after Frederick Merce's criticism of the way the U.S. is dealing with this war, and it is struggling to find an off-ramp now that Iran is not allowing it an easy way out. And he also, like Frederick Merz, has also criticized the way the U.S. is negotiating with Iran, traveling so many miles to Islamabad and then walking away with nothing. So now, like something like this happening immediately after that it seems to be reactionary, and it's not just about force posture. But again, we know that right now the focus is on the Middle East, and this is why it can be about force posture as well. But the timing is significant, and I mean, before this. The 36,000 troops right now, before the Ukraine war, these troop levels were significantly lower. And it's just almost 5,000 troops which are being withdrawn. So it's just almost 12 to 13% of the total number. So I wouldn't call it a very significant development, but it seems to be both a mix of reactionary, but because of the timing, and it also seems quite a bit about the force posture. Maybe it was the thorough review was being carried out before, but the timing is right after Frederick Merce's criticism.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think this is the start of a structural U.S. military drawdown in Europe, or a tactical warning shot tied specifically to Iran and this moment in transatlantic politics?
Well, the U.S. has been quite critical of the NATO allies for quite some time now. We have seen the Greenland saga unfold. We've seen the way Trump has criticized NATO for not providing enough in terms of defense spending. So overall, this Trump 2.0 government is highly critical of its NATO allies. So we can see more troops being withdrawn. We've already seen some signs in terms of statements from President Trump, where he mentioned Spain and Italy, which has also been highly critical of the way this Middle East war has unfolded. So it wouldn't be a surprise to see another number of troops being withdrawn from another NATO ally. But again, it's something that is expected over the longer period of time, not in the short term, because even this 5,000 troops withdrawal is over the next 6 to 12 months. So we can see it, historically and very recently as well, we have seen Trump using these tactics and then again withdrawing from them and taking a more calm approach afterwards. So this has been his approach for quite some time, and I don't see a very huge change in terms of military posturing in Europe for the US.
That was Shakmi Niazi, journalist and political analyst, joining us from Aarhus, Denmark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Ukraine is warning of growing security risks in the region. Recent activity along the Belarus border has raised fresh concerns in Kiev. At the same time, the Ukrainian leadership is continuing diplomatic contacts in an effort to strengthen both regional security and cooperation with European partners.
The Yesterday, there was some rather unusual activity along the Ukraine-Belarus border on the Belarusian side. We are closely monitoring the situation, keeping everything under control, and will respond if necessary. Ukraine is ready to defend its people and its sovereignty. Everyone needs to understand this, particularly those who are being drawn into any aggressive actions against Ukraine. I've just had a good conversation with Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. We appreciate that Slovakia has taken steps to unblock the European support package for Ukraine and the 20th package of sanctions against Russia. We need to maintain strong bilateral relations with Slovakia, even when there are differences of opinion. We discussed the possibility of a meeting and cooperation at the intergovernmental level. I have instructed my team to work out all the details.
US President Donald Trump has announced that tariffs on cars and trucks imported from the European Union will be raised to 25%. In a post on Truth Social on May the 1st, Trump said the decision was linked to what he described as the EU's failure to comply with terms of a trade agreement. According to Trump, the new tariffs will take effect from next week. He added that no tariffs would apply to cars and trucks manufactured at plants located in the United States. The U.S. president also said more than $100 billion is currently being invested in new car and truck plants across the country. He noted that the facilities would employ American workers. Now, trade between Colombia and Ecuador is falling fast because of high tariffs. The border economy is badly affected. Now, both countries have introduced new tariffs on each other's goods. Officials, however, say trade and transport have dropped sharply and in some areas almost stopped. This is causing job losses and more economic problems in border towns.
Trade between Colombia and Ecuador has dropped sharply because of rising tariffs. Industry groups say the border economy is being badly affected. Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa introduced a 100% tariff, which started on May 1st. The government has not said exactly which goods are included.
It escalated little by little, and it's just a show of ego and stubbornness from both presidents, which has kept on growing. This has caused social harm at our border, which used to be very dynamic in terms of imports and exports. This is just creating unemployment, and when people are unemployed, they look for other ways to survive. What alternatives do they have? We have many border crossings around here, so people will resort to smuggling. I'm not blaming them. They need to support their families, pay their debts, and send their kids to school. I'm not justifying it, but this whole situation is being caused by the decisions of the two presidents.
Colombia also imposed new tariffs of 35% to 75% on about 190 Ecuadorian products. Noboa says the measures are due to a trade deficit with Colombia and weak action against drug trafficking on the border. Colombia rejects these claims. A transport group in Ecuador says truck traffic has fallen heavily at the Rumichaca border crossing, from about 150 trucks to just a few vehicles.
This measure is practically shutting down exports. When we look, we only see a few trucks moving between Colombia and Ecuador, likely in transit to Peru, or from Peru to Colombia. This is the only trade we can see today. When the border is essentially closed to trade and only open for the movement of people and vehicles for visits, tourism and limited commerce, it feels like they're taking away half of our livelihood, half of our lifeline, half of our breath. We feel suffocated. And that's how we've described it in our SOS message to Colombia, Ecuador, and the Andean community of nations, asking them to intervene in this situation and understand that the reality at our border is completely different from the perspective in Quito and Bogotá.
Tractomulas pasando de Colombia hacia Ecuador seguramente serán en tránsito hacia el Perú.
They warn the situation is causing job losses and may increase smuggling. Ecuador says the tariffs have actually improved its trade balance with Colombia for the first time. A Colombian trade official says exports have almost stopped because of the measures. Colombia has also stopped selling electricity to Ecuador, which depends on imports of medicines and pesticides from its neighbour.
Now we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Azerbaijan is using diplomacy on the ground, not just in meeting rooms. A large international delegation has spent 2 days touring the country's reclaimed territories, getting a close look at reconstruction efforts and the economic projects designed to bring life back to the region. A-News correspondent Leila Rahimli has more.
Greetings from the beautiful sun-drenched Laçın district. The atmosphere here is truly special today as we wrap up another significant chapter of this diplomatic visit. Since yesterday, May 1st, we've been following a massive delegation, over 150 ambassadors, diplomats and military attachés representing 62 countries and international organizations on this tour of the liberated territories, accompanied by the assistant to the president of Azerbaijan, Hikmet Hajiyev. After a packed day yesterday in Khankendi, Khojalı and Shusha, where the group witnessed the massive scale of the reconstruction work, the focus shifted to Laçın today. The highlight of the day was definitely the visit to the Zerte Agro-Industrial Park. It was impressive to see how quickly things are moving. The delegates got a first-hand look at the diverse range of new facilities, from textile, shoe and furniture factories to high-tech greenhouses and essential oil production. It really paints a picture of a region finding its economic footing again. It's been a busy but very insightful day for all the participants. I'll keep you updated as the tour continues, but for now, that's the latest from the field here in Laçın. This is Leila Rahimli with Khalid Aliyev for A-News.
Azerbaijani officials say despite the formal end of the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, its humanitarian impact continues to pose a serious threat affecting the daily lives of citizens, particularly the ongoing threat posed by landmines. Assistant to the president of Azerbaijan, Hikmet Hajiyev, also said in an interview in Khankendi that Azerbaijan's legal and reconstruction work in the liberated territories is proceeding in line with international law. Here's what he had to say.
Although the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict has formally ended, the humanitarian consequences it has created remain on the agenda and continue to affect the daily lives of Azerbaijani citizens, posing an ongoing threat. Since 2020, more than 420 of our citizens have been killed or seriously injured as a result of mine explosions. Over 1 million mines were planted in Azerbaijani territories during the occupation period by the Armenian armed forces. The clearance of these mines is continuing with our own national resources. But this is a large-scale and complex task. It is also negatively affecting reconstruction and redevelopment efforts in the liberated territories. In addition, we have recently observed misleading and provocative statements from certain circles in Armenia regarding reconstruction and restoration work in Khankendi and other cities. It should be noted that large-scale reconstruction is underway in these territories. Within this process, certain illegal constructions built during the occupation period are being addressed in line with urban planning requirements under international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions. Any construction carried out by an occupying power that violates property rights and sovereignty is considered illegal. Therefore, the removal of such unlawful structures and their alignment with modern urban planning standards is a necessary step. And Azerbaijan is taking appropriate measures in this regard.
Tourism across Central Asia is gaining momentum, with millions of visitors choosing the region as a new travel destination. But behind this growth, competition is intensifying. While Kazakhstan continues to attract the largest number of tourists, neighboring countries are expanding at a much faster rate, reshaping the regional landscape. A-News correspondent Farza Kalamaziner has more.
Competition for tourists is intensifying across Central Asia as visitor numbers continue to rise and countries compete more actively for global attention. According to research by a Commonwealth partnership, travel to the region has grown significantly, but the distribution of tourists is beginning to shift. Kazakhstan remains the most visited destination. However, its neighbors are expanding at a much faster pace. In the first half of 2025, Kazakhstan received 7.5 million visitors, up 8.7% year on year. By comparison, Uzbekistan saw tourism surge by nearly 48%, while Tajikistan recorded growth of more than 30%. This means Kazakhstan still leads in volume, but the regional balance is gradually changing. Within the country, tourist flows remain predictable. The capital Astana relies largely on business travel and major events. Almaty, meanwhile, attracts a broader mix of visitors. The profile of visitors is also evolving. Most tourists still arrive from CIS countries, but there has been a sharp increase in arrivals from China. After one of the world's longest pandemic lockdowns, the number of Chinese tourists has grown roughly fivefold. Interest from India, Turkey and Europe is also steadily increasing. At the same time, countries in the region are setting long-term goals. Tajikistan, for example, aims to become a leader in ecotourism by 2030, focusing on its natural resources and strategic location. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
A complex military drill has taken place in Izmir, Turkey, involving allied forces. Special units tested combat readiness in tough terrain and confined spaces, aimed at boosting coordination and joint operational capability.
EFES 2026 exercise has concluded its cave, shelter and tunnel search training in Izmir with the participation of allied and partner countries. The training was organized by the Turkish Armed Forces at the Ege Army Command's 2 General Hudaverdi Ersoy Barracks training area. A total of 93 military personnel from 9 countries took part, including Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Romania, North Macedonia and Syria. The aim of the exercise was to improve the operational capabilities of military units in difficult terrain and conditions. In the first phase, drones were used to conduct reconnaissance of the cave and surrounding area. Special units then secured and surrounded the location. In the second phase, search teams entered the cave and carried out inspections. Evacuation of the wounded and transport of explosives were also practiced. A locally developed mine detector called Ozan, produced by Tubitak Bilgem, was used to scan the cave route and mark suspicious points. According to the scenario, the terrorist elements inside the cave were neutralized and the area was fully secured. All caves, tunnels and shelters used in the exercise were subsequently destroyed and the training was successfully completed.
Now, this weekend, Baku's old city has turned into a vibrant celebration of tradition and craftsmanship. Take a look.
With their intricate textures and symbols, carpets have told the story of the Caucasus across centuries. Today, they stand as bridges between past and present. And this time, I'll take you on a journey through history.
In the heart of Baku's old city, the third International Carpet Festival transformed the streets into a kaleidoscope of carpets. This year's central symbols, Miznat and Mr. Heritage, welcome guests through a symbolic matrimony, an imaginative celebration described as a wedding of textures, symbols, colors, and stories that captivated visitors. The festival offered a vivid, hands-on showcase of the entire carpet weaving process, with each stage demonstrated using authentic tools and traditional setups.
Nowadays, in many places, wool is spun using machines and equipment. But in the past, my mother, grandmother and I worked with this. That's why I have preserved it. It was passed down from my maternal grandmother. This spinning wheel is 250 years old, yet it still looks as if it were made today. I've carefully maintained and looked after it.
We only use natural dyers. Even after many years, the colours do not fade. They preserve their delicacy, beauty and sense of antiquity.
With a strong international presence, the festival featured participation from 19 countries across various pavilions and performances. Exhibitions, music and dance performances, and artist talks extended throughout the Old City, creating a dynamic cultural landscape that brought heritage and global exchange together.
We should do to be competitive, and this is what Morocco does in a very good way, is actually take the craftsmanship of the carpets and turn it into a luxury asset and a contemporary design product. Create architectural lines, contemporary designs, and do a reinterpretation of the ancestral techniques and put them into contemporary homes and designs.
Our materials are natural materials. We paint this carpet with flowers like yellow. This is a yellow color with flores en pasuchil. We use flores en pasuchil en Día de Muertos, the Day of the Dead. In Mexico is a long tradition. So we are excited to explain our tradition, our family, because the artisans are for generation they are their patrons, and we are so happy to be here.
Azerbaijani carpet weaving is inscribed on UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage list, and Baku remains the only city in the world to host an annual festival dedicated to this centuries-old craft.
All right, that's all we have for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Air News.